Thank you. I'm so glad that I'm so glad to be here, and I'm glad that you understand resonance already, because what I just did is resonated with you, and everybody in the room, even though I didn't ask, started to hum as well, or the majority of you did. And I'll talk about that in just a few minutes and the significance of that. Some of you might be in here thinking, oh, wow, he's already starting pretty woo-woo, and it's not woo-woo at all. I'm going to start out with a real hard question for you all today. What does a world that works for everyone look like for you? That's a 70-plus-year-old question. And it was originally started in the 1960s by a man by the name of R. Buckminster Fuller, or Bucky. He was a polymath and architect, and I'll also talk a little bit more about him. Have you ever heard of the golden rule? Treat people and planet as you wish to be treated. I want to do another kind of a social experiment again with you guys, because I think this is the crowd. You guys are going to totally baffle me. I normally don't ask you to close your eyes, because I want to stay away from the feelings of woo-woo or getting you into your mind too much. I want you to be really present today. But I'm going to ask you to close your eyes in a minute. Not yet. And when you close your eyes, I want you to think of your home. So let's go ahead and close our eyes, and I want you to think of your home. What does it look like? What's there? What do you see? What do you smell? What do you maybe hear? What feelings does your home give to you? Okay, now open your eyes. And with the raise of hands, how many people thought of this as their home? Didn't happen again. I've been doing this for over 32 years and asking that question, and it's about the same. Less than 1% raise their hand because they don't think this as their home. Who disagrees that this isn't our home? That's the big problem, because it is our home, yet we're not even united in the fact that it is our home. Right? So how can we find the answer to the question, what does a world that works for everyone look like to you, if we can't even unify on what our home looks like? A lot of people think of their home as their country, their state, whether they live in an apartment, on a farm, in a house. If they're campers, if they live in their camper, if they live in a tent, if they are a tiny home living, they think about their plants and their animals and their children and their partner. That's what they think about. A world that works for everyone is also a social experiment that I've been doing for 8 years now. I've asked over 3,600 people around the world on video, and Errol was part of this as well, and so was Sabrina, and a few others of you have heard this in this room before. And I ask this question to people on video. I have a podcast. You've probably heard about that. I've been in the 5th season. I'm so thankful. And I've asked everyone on my podcast, everybody on my podcast, they're authors, they're speakers, they're scientists, they're UN leaders. They've written a book. They've done something miraculous. They're doing something with regeneration, and just a lot of fabulous people. And let me tell you what's happened when I ask them this question. First of all, they start to shake and stutter and get nervous, and there's some sweat, and they're like, can you ask me later? Can I think about it? And they start to stutter, and most of them don't know the answer. And then if I ask them the answer twice in the same day or over a couple weeks, their answer's always different. And out of all the people that I asked, they've come back later and said, hey, I thought of the answer again. Can I tell you my new answer? Or I thought about it some more. Can I tell you my new answer? And I said, sure, but I have to record it. And then when I recorded it, it went back and compared it to the first. It was different than the first time. And I've done that over the years, over the months, and it's always different. Out of all the people I asked, only 7 of the people came up with an answer that was kind of similar. So again, that less than 1% statistic of what I just did that experiment with you in the room. So then I thought, we're in the age of AI and big data. I'm going to go ask ChatGPT. So I asked. I was one of beta users, and I asked it pretty early on, and it immediately gave me the answer. And it was pretty spot on to the correct answer. It elaborated even more, and it gave it immediately. So I thought, I know how ChatGPT works. This has this fabulous little, my favorite word, regenerate button on the bottom. And I hit the regenerate button. I hit that thing 120 times, and it always came back as the same answer. So I asked it, are you broken? What's wrong? Why am I not getting a different answer? I've since learned that now with, I think, version 4 or whatever we're on now, and also with Gemini, that answer has become even more updated. It gives you bullet points. It's more refined. It's more detailed on how you can get into action. But it's kind of still close to the original answer. But it was always the same. So back then, I went and asked people around the world, says, hey, Thailand and Brazil, and asked this question, and they also got the same answer. So I'm thinking, this thing is absolutely broke. But in reality, what I thought is, did we domesticate artificial intelligence? Did we domesticate technology, or did it domesticate us? And even more importantly, how in the hell does ChatGPT know the question, but everybody in this room and everybody that I asked, the 3,600 people around the world on video, why didn't they know the answer? Well, that's an old answer. It's been around for 70 plus years. It comes from this man. This is our Buckminster Fuller. I told you I would mention him, or Bucky. He wrote this wonderful book, The Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth. What the hell? There's an operating manual for Spaceship Earth? Why didn't we get that right when we were born? Well, we didn't, and there's also not an operating manual for us, but he wrote it, and if anybody's read it or seen it, it's a toilet read. It's paper thin. It's about the size of one of Errol's books, which I also love. I think it's true. All the pivotal documents, our Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence, manifestos, they are thin toilet read documents that unify humanity. They're not hard and complicated or biblical to understand. They're documents that cannot be discussed, debated, or controversial. They're very simple to understand. Say, I resonate with that, I understand that, and I'm fully on board with that. It needs to be simple because we are the descendants of great apes. We're still a little slow, wise human, but still figuring it out. And we just love to debate and pound our egos to understand this. But I want to tell you something. So this is his book, Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth. And in 1967, he built the geodesic dome at the World's Fair in Montreal, Canada. And inside that dome, in 1967, they played a game called the World Game or the Peace Game. And here's the crazy thing. Not only the architect who built that, and he's the one who came up with that question, but in the dome played the world game and the peace game to answer the question, what does a world that works for everyone look like? With people from all over the world. And this is the inside cover of the book, kind of talks about his life. But this is his answer to the question that he collected from his life's work. What does a world that works for everyone look like for you? And it is to make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation without the ecological offense or disadvantage of anyone. So now I've totally, from what Sabrina and Diep and anyone else who's invited me here to speak, gone off and added a few more things. And the reason I've added a few more things to my talk, and I'm going to tell you really specific, is because I love you and because I've seen and I've heard, I've been asked questions by each of you. I've been seen some weird looks, I've seen some nice looks, and I've seen some big question marks, some even smoke come out of some of your ears. And I think we need to get on the same page. And so I brought some tools to get us all on the same page as humanity so that we can have a little bit better understanding going forward, not only for the panel and what we're going to talk about on the panel, but just so that we can get aligned on the same page, the same frequency, the same understanding. What are we all doing here on this planet? What are we doing here at this conference? Why are we here? And how does that relate to technology, to AI, to quantum computing, to consciousness, to the Sustainable Development Goals, to regeneration? This is kind of a relative size of particles and size. We're going to talk about size for a moment because sometimes as an individual we feel too small to do anything, to have an impact on this big world, or to say, even if I knew what a world that worked for everyone that looks like for me, it wouldn't matter because I'm just a tiny little Marc Buckley and I can't impact the world in any way. That's up to the politicians or presidents or whatever. But this is a human hair. This is a grain of pollen. This is a dust particle, and that's a coronavirus. Boy, that small thing sure fucked up the world, didn't it? The coronavirus, but it's just small, it can't do anything. You need to wear a mask, you need to get vaccinated, whatever. But it really shook humanity big time. That same principle, or what we call in space travel, the gravitational assist, or the slingshot effect, or the super exponential impact of small things can really rattle our chain, our world, and disrupt things. We are all stardust or star stuff. Have you ever heard that before? I buy into that. I'm star stuff, stardust, 100%. The basic elements of life, the basic elements of your and my body, they're the elements that star stuff is made up of. Oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, calcium. Those are the basic elements of life. They're in our body. They're in that stardust. They're in the basic elements of our ground and our earth that our earth is made up of. Matter of fact, it's not just that. You can't read this list here, but it goes into much more. But a good friend of mine, Pedro, who's just a geeky guy and nerdy science and space and musician guy, he actually went and said, we're more than 90% star stuff. And here's the basic elements that are in our body, in our earth, and that star stuff that created our earth. So what am I telling you? Well, Carl Sagan said it the best. The nitrogen in our DNA, the calcium in our teeth, the iron in our blood, the carbon in our apple pies were made in the interiors of collapsing stars. We are all made of star stuff. Stardust. That was Carl Sagan. He had this wonderful program called the cosmos. He talked about things. It's really interesting. Now, I showed you that picture. I showed you that picture of our home, right? That was the second catalog image. Hold on. What? No, leave the window open. We need some fresh air to wake us up. That second catalog image of our home that I showed you, that's our home, was taken in 1972, okay? But what is that image besides our home? Does anybody know? What does that image mean? You'll be lucky to know that there's no guessing with me. I'm going to give you the answers. If you don't shout them out, I'm going to give you the answers. That image is sheer innovation. Had we not gone to space, we wouldn't even have that image. With the latest computing power, the latest technology, we went to outer space and by accident reversed and looked back at the Earth and got the first Earthrise image, and then later said, hey, these Earth images are actually a lot cooler than the boring, dry Mars or Moon images. And what that is sheer technology. Every second of the day, we have the latest computing power, satellites looking back at our Earth, giving us the heart blood, the pulse of life on Earth. Precipitation, soil data, all sorts of things, and thousands of more coming online every single day. That image is sheer innovation by human beings who are discovering more and more about their home and how precious that home is. So does innovation play a role in this whole journey that we're on? Absolutely. I'm not going to go too much in this, but I just want to hit the whole road home to connect you to our planet Earth. This is the birth of our Earth in a centric timeline. Starts here with the birth, and then the very first living organisms come on the scene about 3.8 billion years, and it's bacteria. And then if you go throughout to where we are over here today, you see these little pockets of extinction. And the last one is when the dinosaurs went extinct, when the asteroid hit the Yucatan Peninsula and wiped out the dinosaurs and really paved the way for us to come on the scene, made it a lot easier for us to survive because of that. This is a tree of life, but a different tree of life. I showed you that life on Earth started with bacteria. Well, this is the bacteria tree of life. But why do I show you this? Why are we interested in bacteria? Because this image we didn't even get until 2015. This area right here, and we got it through innovation, by the way. We got it through innovation, science, and research. But this is all a new branch that was discovered in 2015. And where was it discovered? On our bodies, in our guts. The majority of that area is bacteria we didn't even know existed until 2015, and it makes up the majority of our body. Have you ever heard the gut is like your second brain? I have a bad gut feeling that if you don't have good gut health, that it can affect your overall health, and it can affect many decisions you make in your life. Well, here's all the fungus and bacteria that live on our body. 3 kingdoms and a lot of that. And if you look at our body, here's the human genes on our body, less than 23,000. Here's the human cells, just above 30 trillion, right above the knee a little bit. And the rest is 100, just under 100 trillion microbial cells and just under 2 million microbial genes. We are an ecosystem. Our bodies are an ecosystem. So it's not just the hocus pocus wooey that Mark was telling you that you're connected to this earth. None of us were dropped off on spaceship Germany, spaceship Israel, spaceship America, spaceship whatever. We crawled out of that primordial soup. we have that same DNA and makeup and chemistry of the soil underneath our feet. So if the microcosmos around us, the soil, the microbial life in our world around us is unhealthy, I can guarantee you we're probably unhealthy as well. Human health, my health, your health, Errol's health, is a microcosmos of the world around us. Reconnect yourself, please, to the world around you and to those human beings around you.
Soil is a living miracle. In one handful of soil, there are more organisms than there are humans on Earth. And we are only beginning to understand this vast network of beings right beneath our feet. We rely on healthy soil for 95% of what we eat. Yet, we take it for granted. Thousands of years of plowing, deforestation.
You missed it if it was too fast. A handful of soil is more microbial cells and genes and life than there are people on the planet. This is Carl Sagan.
Racial, sexism, rooted shoulders into rabid nationalist fervor are beginning to collect. A new consciousness is developing that sees the earth as stable organism and recognizes that an organism at war with itself is doomed.
Boy, he was a wise guy. He was such a cool guy. I had his daughter on my podcast, Sasha Sagan. I know his son, Dorian Sagan. And I knew his first wife, or I like to say I knew his first love, Lynn Margulis, who created Symbiosis, who brought us that to the world. So I think I've driven the ball home. I've hit the home run to connect you to our earth and to one another and to this planet. That's our home. And my real journey is I want to get you thinking in systems. I want to give you some ecological literacy. I want to give you some regenerative literacy. And most of all, to think intergenerationally. Not only the justice and vision of intergenerational wisdom, our kids, our grandkids, and the people coming 8 generations after us, that we pave the way for them. Errol probably knows this, but I'm an economist too. I'm an ecological economist. I studied at the University of Maryland with Herman Daly. He's the second father of ecological economics. He was with the World Bank and the United Nations doing a lot of fabulous things, and he left in an open letter because he was so sick of capitalism. And he said, capitalism doesn't work. It's a bad system. It's making people suffer, creating a ripple problem on our world. And he left in an open letter in the New York Times and says, we need to go to steady state economics. We need to go to ecological economics. We need a different form of economics in our world. And he taught it then at the University of Maryland. And luckily, I was so lucky to have the feds pay for me to go study with him. And he was a good friend and mentor. But that brings me to this new thing. I'm a farmer, and some of you might have heard that before, but I love bullshit. You know why I love it? It's because it makes great compost. Shit makes great compost. It does. Absolutely. It makes fabulous compost. And so I used to tease quite a bit and say, because I hate Trump, I hate a lot of the bad actors in our world because I think they're full of bullshit. So I used to tease and say, we need to mix that good bullshit to get some good compost so that we can have really fertile soils and that. We need a little bit of the bad actors. And I meant it more in the kind of teasing way as not a myth, but kind of an example to kind of tease, but it is real. You can compost late-stage capitalism to make really good economic models. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You can take all those things that we've done with capitalism and repurpose that into regenerative economies, into ecological economies, to Errol's super economic models and ideas that are more ecological economic models. And this is Tom Chi. He actually talks about this, composting late-stage capitalism. So it's not just me who came up with this joking. It's been around for quite some time. Tom Chi was with Google. He now owns this own big fund, but he's spoken on Ma Earth. And here's just him saying it himself.
Metaphors matter because it does shape the way that we think about the problem and therefore approach the problem, what we consider to be a win or not. But I think a better metaphor is we need to compost late-stage capitalism.
Welcome to the Regeneration
will be funded. And so I also talk about regeneration, and you know, we're in the Anthropocene, this kind of age of man-made destruction on our earth. And I always say we need to go to the Symbiocene. We need to make that transition to the Symbiocene, a new way, a symbiotic relationship with our earth and with each other, and cooperation and collaboration. And so here's where we set the stage for the panel. I want to talk to you about the 3 principles of sustainability, and they are here, so there's no misunderstanding. The first principle is economics. The second is innovation, and it's more so transformative impact innovations for purpose that are transformational. And the last is the future, or futures. This intergenerational vision and future plays a big part in the 3 principles of sustainability. So some of you probably are already thinking, what the hell? I thought sustainability was tree-hugging hippies, uka-muka, whatever, love, peace. What does that have to do with economics? What does that have to do with innovation? Innovation, what does that have to do with the future? And don't get me wrong, when I say the 3 principles of sustainability, some people, and I know a couple back in the room, probably think, oh, I know that, I've heard it before. But don't confuse the 3 principles of sustainability with John Elkington's People, Planet, and Profit. How many people have heard of People, Planet, and Profit, the triple bottom line from John Elkington? You've heard of that? Okay. Did you also hear that it was recalled? No, not very few have heard that. So it's the 3 Ps, or the triple bottom line, People, Planet, Profit. Just last week, I read an annual report from a pretty big company. I won't call them out here, that listed 20 pages in their annual report, and they kept repeating the word, the triple bottom line, and we're doing this. It's the biggest way that you know that they're greenwashing, faking it, and they're full of shit. Because they didn't get the memo that John Elkington in 2018, at the 25th 5-year anniversary of inciting the triple bottom line, he said, I'm recalling it. And he recalled it because he was at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and there was a bunch of big corporations greenwashing the shit out of the triple bottom line. They only cared about the profit. They didn't care about the planet or people. Fuck them. They only wanted the profit. And he got so fed up, he said, I'm out of here. Stormed out. The next day it was published in the Harvard Review that he's recalling the triple bottom line. Well, what happens when you recall something? Well, you fix it. If it's a car, or if it's something to do with kids, or a play toy or something, you fix it, or you don't ever bring it back. And once you fix it, you put it back out there. And So that was at the 31-year mark, six or more years. 2018 is when he recalled it. But most people didn't get the memo. But he also, with Green Swans, his book, I think that was in the slide prior, he kind of talked about that, but he still hadn't come out with what he replaced it with. But it's been replaced by something fabulous. Again, my favorite words, mainly regeneration in there. But he came out with the new triple bottom line, the 3 R's. And it's responsibility, resilience, and regeneration. Let me just tell you, no bars hold why I love it. It's impossible to greenwash the new triple bottom line, the 3 R's. Within hours to weeks, no more than a month, if somebody's saying, oh yeah, we're resilient, we're responsible, we have regenerative and regeneration, you can find out slicker than just so fast if it's true or not. It cannot be greenwashed. And mostly it cannot be greenwashed because when a pandemic comes, a Brexit comes, when a war comes, if you don't have these 3 things, you'll probably be out of business. You'll probably be doing layoffs. You'll probably be sending people packing out the door. You'll be struggling. You'll be looking for grants and subsidies and help from the government. So when everything I'm talking about is sustainability, and sustainability is life. Sustainability is not something that, okay, I am the chief sustainability officer at my job, and you go to work, and all of a sudden you're the CSO, right? It's not something that happens when you go to work. It's not something that happens when you go to church. It's not something that happens when you're in your organization. Sustainability is life. It's every fucking minute of the day, every second. There's no turning it off. There's no flipping it on. And that goes back to another misnomer that we've had in this world. Have you ever heard the term work-life balance? What a load of bullshit. What a load of hooey. I'm going to turn on that work-life balance. Well, it's absolute bullshit. It's going up in flames. If you are one person at work and another person in life, you're schizophrenic, bipolar, you have, whatever, you're on the verge of burnout. It doesn't exist. Let me give you an example. Let's say that your work life is going fabulous. At home, you just got married, you just bought a house, you're having a new baby, and everything's going good. Just building this house, and this is your home life area. Kind of your weekends are going great, going on a cruise, whatever. Then at work, you just got promoted, you just got a raise, you're just whatever. And so in the work, you've just taken a bunch of steps up the corporate ladder, and at home, you're evolving, and you've taken a bunch of steps in your family life. But guess what's happened? In reality, because there's only life, you've just stayed right in the middle. You've been on the rat race, on the hamster wheel, running in a circle. You haven't gone nowhere. Because both of those areas are going in different directions, working against different things against your evolution. We are not in the business of business. We are in the business of life. And until you figure that out, you're not going to have the success like Errol, like me, like many of the other people, because you're constantly going to be on the verge of burnout. You're going to be on this fight, on this struggle with how life works. There is only life, and it's a regenerative evolution. We are on a development evolution on how we live life. So, as I wrap this up, I want to cover 2 areas. We talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. I have the pin here on my thing. I wrote the manifesto for the Sustainable Development Goals for the United Nations. But what is development? Well, it's 2 things. It's inner development, which is consciousness and this inner development that we kind of want to talk about today. But then there's outer development. And mainly, we want to talk about the outer development part. There's the inner development goals have come out as well. And this is the sustainable development goals. But we really want to focus on outer development. This outer development, what is that? Outer development is the built environment. It's infrastructure, it's real estate, it's development projects, it's city and state and country, it's individuals, schools, residential, commercials. It's that infrastructure, hospitals, and schools. That's what outer development is. It's an infrastructure. So what does that mean? What it means is it's an economy. Development is an economy. How many people knew that development was an economy? It's an $89 trillion US dollar economy from 2015 to 2030. Anything over $1 trillion is an economy. Did you know there's a tulip economy in the Netherlands? It's 5 trillion. It's huge. It's an economy. It's the built environment. This regular development is what we call business as usual, the built environment, or high carbon scenario. It means we do it how we've always done it since the Industrial Revolution. And we continue to repeat that. So what is sustainable development? I've heard a lot of people say, oh, that's a Klaus Schwab conspiracy theory. I don't believe it's going to work. We're never going to reach the goals. We're way behind. And some people say, God, I love the sustainable development goals. Sorry, I don't want to be rude. And I'm not sure I will say it. I had somebody say SDGs and said something so derogatory of what they thought it meant. It was very sexual, and I about passed out. I couldn't believe it, that one, they hadn't heard it, and then it was tied to something so derogatory that really means something so good for us in life. Sustainable development this is in Denmark. This is a ski resort on an energy factory that's using 100% wind energy and hydrogen and all sorts of things. And they have a ski resort and it's all run on renewable energy and doing good things. This is in another good sustainable development area with the parks. Then Singapore. This is, I think, Austria or Switzerland. That's Switzerland. So what is sustainable development? It's also an economy, but it's a different type of economy. It's an ecological economy. And it also has a dollar value from 2015 to 2030, the 15 years of the SDGs. It's a $94 trillion economy, but it's different. It's what we call the low carbon scenario. It's circular economy, better materials, better practices, so that we're doing it a little bit better. Now, is it perfect? No, absolutely. It's not perfect, but it's a nudge and a step in an evolution towards a little bit better way of living. And when we talked about where's our home, everybody or a majority of you thought about your actual home. But what is that? That's the development we're talking about. How you live, where you live, apartment, a house, a farm. That's development. So do you want to never clean your house, never upgrade it? You want to have asbestos heating? Do you want to have lead-based paints? Or do you want to say, there might be some better things for my health. I want some more greens, a nicer garden, and better ways of living, which is the core of what? Evolution. So that's what sustainable development is. It's not some Klaus Schwab conspiracy theory or something negative. It's the step into living and being in a better way. Just an evolution, and it's only a short evolution. It's only till 2015. And, this is how we were presented with the SDGs. That's a whole another thing in and of itself. If I ask people about it, we presented them very linear and lateral. And if I say, hey, do you know about these? They say, oh yeah, I like number 1 red. It's my favorite color. I'm working on that one. But I want you to know it's virtually impossible to work on one SDG without touching on all the other ones because they're tied together as a system. And that's why I wrote the manifesto for the United Nations. I'm not going to read it to you now, but that's the tie of the 3 principles of sustainability, is because I want you to envision a future the future of how we would live. So what does a world that works for everyone, or what does a world that achieves all the sustainable development goals look and feel like to you and me if we were standing December 31st, 2030 in that world? And I'll tell you what, it looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's such a step in the right direction. More renewables, better cities, more equality, better practices. Isn't that fabulous? This is actually how we should look at the SDGs. Like a pyramid, a pie. Everything that we build and eat and do in our world comes from this layer, the biosphere. If the biosphere collapses, we won't have anything to make anything with. We won't have anything to make food with, to eat with, cars, computers, nothing. So that's the most important layer. And all 17 SDGs are tied together as a system. And you might have seen another type of pyramid or a system that looks similar to the SDGs, and that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And the reason why is these bottom two layers are for you and I. It's the physiological needs of human beings, yours and my needs. So what are the SDGs? They're the basic needs for you and me. They're not for Klaus Schwab or Unilever or Trump. They're so you and I can live better. So why are we bitching and moaning about it? Let's get on the ball and go forward and move with them. We're already 8 years in. To hit the ball home, or the point, in order to achieve the SDGs, we need to make 6 major transformations to get there. And the one we only talk about, and probably kind of doing at this event as well, but it's all events I go to, so don't feel bad. We always talk about the digital revolution or the digital transformation. But we forget that never before in human history has humanity transformed from one age or epoch to another without innovation and without a transformation. Without the pneumatic tire, the steam engine, the printing press, the computer, and we're right at the cusp of a super cycle. AI, biotechnologies, wearables, quantum computing, and the first one is education, gender equality. And so all the SDGs are tied to these 6 major transformations, and that is the 3 principles of sustainability. In biology, as in life, and in all living systems in our world, 1 + 1 never, ever, 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 and ever will equal 2 in all living systems and their subsystems. It's a super exponential, and it verges on quantum tunneling. And I love to tell Germans this because they're like, what is that word salad you just threw at me? What the hell, quantum tunneling? And I'm going to explain it to you real quick. Do quantum computers, we're trying to do quantum computations to figure out what nature and living systems have done without a computer. We're trying to figure out how to figure out better fertilizers, better mechanics to do photosynthesis. Is why we want that quantum computer to help us figure out how to do these things to live more renewably, more sustainably, and better in the future. Nature, a plant, the sun, fungus, the soils below our feet, they're quantum mechanically. And that's why when you get one seed, it doesn't equal 1 seed plus 1 seed doesn't equal 2. It's a super exponential, but because of photosynthesis and all that, it's quantum mechanically. And it's existed for 3.8 billion years. And so there's the talk of AI being sentient. There's the talk of quantum supremacy and all this understanding of that. I want you to know, no one's ever said, hey, are we worried that the bees or the plants or the fungus are going to take over our world? But we sure have a hell of a lot of discussions about AI taking over the world and quantum computers, how that's really going to mess us up. We never had that about bees, plants, and fungus, but they've been doing it all along. I want you to connect yourself to that way of thinking, to those ancestors, to our earth. We're tied to it. And when you think that way, you can too be quantum and quantum mechanically. You too can be the parents of AI and teach it to have this symbiosis. Symbiosis is an ecological phenomenon. It's the fastest advanced form of human evolutionary innovation we've ever seen in our world before. It's faster than any quantum computer that you could think of, no matter if you cluster them all. It can do things that you just can't imagine. But we've distanced ourselves so much from that we misunderstand it. Now, if we use that technology we're all here to talk about to solve human suffering and to solve our global grand challenges, wow. Can you believe that? Wow. My head explodes. And I just didn't make any of this up. This all comes from books and research. I told you Lynn Margulis was Carl Sagan's first wife. This is the book she wrote, Symbiosis as a Source of Evolutionary Innovation. And the word, the symbiocene, that came from her, but then Glenn Albrecht, who was also on the podcast, he wrote a book called Earth Emotions. He says, we need new words for a new world so that we can start talking in eco-literacy, talking in cooperation with the way our world works, so that we can have the tools to also harness quantum, to also harness symbiosis, because it is the fastest form of evolution. This is just some other books she wrote, The Symbiotic Planet, The Microcosmos, with some of the other things I discussed, because I'd love us all to go to the Symbiocene. Nature is a totally efficient, self-regenerative system. If we discover the laws that govern that system, and that's why we're looking to quantum computers, and live synergistically within them, sustainability will follow and humankind will be a success. That comes from R. Buckminster Fuller, the guy I showed you in the first place. Regenerative or regeneration means creating the conditions that are conducive to life to thrive and flourish amid ever-changing life conditions. And it's not just regenerative agriculture, it's regenerative design, economies. Regeneration is everything. It's our whole world. It's been in the code for 3.8 billion years and probably even longer than that. We need to get out of this ego view where man's at the top and controlling everything. A little bit more to this eco view of life where man and woman are in the center of everything. But we're on this journey of Seva. And Seva means, it's an old Sanskrit word which means regeneration, selfless service to life. And that's the journey we're on. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. I love you guys. And let's go to the panel. I've taken too much time.